I came to you with your father's voice, not to scare you. Because you've never had such an experience. And it has to be done in a way that I give it to you in doses, where you're able to contain and to handle more. And then he said to Moshe, take off your shoes. So this text is going to be, if you want to read it ahead of me, this text is going to be about what it means that Moshe was asked to take off his shoes.
Huh.
It's brilliant. And why his name is not separated by a vertical line, this curtain, this partition, whereas Avram, Avram, Yaakov, Yaakov, Shmuel, Shmuel are. So skip the second paragraph, which is nice, but for our purposes, I just want to get a little bit further. This is the meaning. It's the third paragraph from the bottom of the page now. This is the meaning of Avram, Avram, and all these other cases of doubled names. The first of the two names represents the upper root of the soul, exactly what we saw above in Reb Chaim Vital, who lived 200 years before. So he's really not telling us anything new. We knew that the first name represents the upper root of the soul, the spiritual dimension, the actual abode of the soul, our hometown, while the second represents the lowest extremity of the soul that branches down into the body. And look at the next paragraph, the underlined sentence. The body is thus like a shoe relative to the entire stature of the soul. I never tire of giving over this teaching. I just think it's really so graphic. Wow. The body is like a shoe relative to the soul. So just as only the foot, which is the lowest extremity of the body, can fit into a shoe, so may only the lowest extremity of the soul fit into the body. That gives me a ratio to work with. My shoes are down here, my body is all the way up here. My body is down here, my soul going all the way up. Yeah.
What does it mean, the lowest extremity of the soul?
Yeah.
The soul has various levels within our body?
So what we said above here is that it's like a tree. Again, metaphors, but metaphors that have an inner meditative base, so that we're allowed to use the metaphors, and then we go inside, and we know that we're just using the metaphor to approximate a reality that's beyond what we can imagine. But if we refine ourselves, we can actually experience it. So the way in is through metaphor, through right brain analogical thinking, but then at a certain point, like God is not a king with a white beard, but it's a very useful metaphor. I don't throw them out, because once you know what their place is, they have a very good use. But then again, as I said, it becomes an entryway into a deeper way of understanding. So what we said above is, yeah, we use the concept that there's a higher extremity of the soul root, and even that we didn't really go into, but that root itself is somehow connected to God. So this stuff, that each thing needs to be gone into at its right time. And the words or the names of the various different levels of the soul, right? Either whether in terms of spherot names, or in terms of, there's going to be 5 names of the soul. All the technical law knowledge that goes along with this, I'm basically leaving in the background for the moment, and just trying to get a sense of a complete structure that towers above us, and that we become an embodiment of the lowest extremity, with the possibility of drawing more and more of juice down into here, because this is where we have to live, and to become more and more fully embodied. Right? There was a book by R.D. Laing back in the 60s called The Disembodied Soul. No? Wasn't that The Divided Mind? Whatever it was called, something like that. I got the idea of disembodied soul out of divided mind somehow. Okay. So now at the bottom of the page. Oh, so in this second to last paragraph that we just started to read, he explains why Moses was asked to take off his shoes. Because he can, that fourth line from the bottom, from the bottom paragraph. I usually can navigate you a little bit better. Again, the fourth line from the bottom of the paragraph, which is second from the bottom. The third word, quote, "Remove your shoes from your feet, for the place upon which you are standing is holy ground," right? Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. In addition to the plain meaning of the statement, which is the actual removal of the shoes, Hashem, God, was indicating to Moses that he must divest his soul of its physical sheath in order to be able to withstand the powerful light that he wished to bestow upon him at that time. This is a beautiful idea. Moses was now experiencing prophecy. And there's the beginning of the prophecy when he gets called and he says, "Daddy." And he says, no, it's not your daddy, but I just came to you with that name, that voice, so you should know not to be afraid and that it's something very familiar to you because you're just a novice. But now I want you to get to a level, because you've worked on yourself, I want you to now experience prophecy in its fullness. I want you to have an out-of-the-body experience. I want you to be lifted up above the physical, above the veil. I want you to know that you are embodied in the physical body, but that is not the totality of who you are. And you'll come back. I'll bring you back. Now, this is where you have to be. You're beautiful. You're beautiful as a composite being of soul and body. But in order to really know your soul, you have to abstract out, which is called in Hebrew lahafshit, mufshat. Something which is abstract is mufshat. And the word lahafshit is to take off, to divest. So there's invest, which is to come into body, and there's divest, which is to take off body, which is a halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. It says, "Hachasidim harishonim hayu shohim sha'a achad ad shehigiu lehitpashtut hagashmiut." Hitpashtut, lahafshit. They would wait an hour before they prayed until they arrived at a level called the divesting of the physical, and that's when they would start to pray. Wow, why don't we do that? Because most Jews will tell you, well, that's what they did. We're not supposed to do that. We can't do that. But maybe the response could be, well, but Rabbi, wow, it would really be special to try. You know, be innocent, but let's be children. It's there. It says they did it. Can't you tell us how to do this to connect to God? Instead of just believing that there's a God and believing that the Torah is, in our generation we need experience, a viable way of experiencing our own souls. I'm starting tonight. What I want to say is I mix in the best way that I can, which is basically what I'm doing, is to mix in that there is an experiential level here within the words, and trying to access that spiritual level, and hoping that it's meaningful to you and that it's giving you some food for thought. And then he explains in the last paragraph at the end at the bottom of the page here, this is the meaning of the pasek, this vertical line between Avram and Avram as well as the others, as opposed to Moshe, who didn't have a vertical line. What's the vertical line represent? It would mean a partition between the upper root of the soul and the lower extremity of the soul that's in our body. Moses didn't have that partition. He had gotten to the level, the greatest prophet. It goes along with the tradition that we have that he was the greatest prophet, the Av HaNevi'im, the father of all the prophets, even though that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob had it, but nobody reached the level of Moses. So this is along those lines, is that all the others still had somewhat of a partition to protect them from the powerful light of the soul root. It shouldn't come down too strongly into them to destroy their ability to live here. Whereas Moses, after the burning bush, was able to maintain that level, and he even grew into it more. The next 40 years of his life, he became even greater and greater and greater. His face began to shine when he came down from Sinai. We're talking about a human being because that's what Judaism is talking about. We never deify, but we're talking about what an incredible